Hello, it's me. I had to put my thumb over the camera because I have you in a tissue box. Angle and positioning, it just works out best that way. Plus, it helps to kind of cut my face out of things a little bit because it's a distraction for me. Who doesn't like looking at themselves, right? But at the same time, it can be very overwhelming to our own senses, especially when there's this over focus of knowing that we're being watched. Whew. So this is actually a little experiment of mine. I'm going to paint this pumpkin, even though it's after Halloween. I'm going to paint the pumpkin while I talk to you and see if that changes my ability to recall information. And the reason I say that is because, so if I was folding laundry, this would probably be even more different. And the reason why is because when I fold laundry, I either do it one or two, there's like one or two ways that I do it. That's it. The brain already knows this pattern. It already knows that's the go-to. So the what if that's involved of what if I do pattern 1 or what if I do pattern 2, it's not that big. And so then when it comes to being able to like talk or about something else while I'm doing the laundry, it would probably be a pretty good mix actually, because there's just enough of the focus on the laundry that's taken from the focus of being watched on a camera. Well, my next experiment is going to actually be to completely like wrap something around my phone so that I can't see myself at all. See, right now I can see myself a little bit. It's nice, but it's also a little it's a little frustrating. Because I need a shower. I haven't had one yet, but I'm getting ready to paint, so why go out? Why get a shower and then go cut the grass? Well, actually, there is good reasoning behind that, and that's because any dirt that's already on your skin is just going to be an extra layer on you, especially if it's hot outside while you're cutting the grass. So that's just even more layers, even more your pores can't breathe, even more just annoying and uncomfortable. So there's a method to that madness. And then getting the shower afterwards, too. Anyway, I'm just jabbering right now. It's not really important what I'm saying. Like I said, this is mostly just an experiment. And really, I don't have to post the video, but if I'm gonna make it, why not, right? We'll see. We'll see. Still trying to get over that. My as you saw the videos of my son, he's like very excited about being a YouTuber, to the point where he has actually not completely agreed. We're working on it still, but somewhat agreed to get his hair cut. I know. You're his parent. You can tell him what he has to do. Well, some parents are like that. No, I'm the boss. I tell you what to do. And some parents are more like, no, I want you to make your own decisions. I want you to think for yourself, kind of thing. Which one's right? Which one's wrong? I ask you. That's a trick question. Anyway, so I do let him try to make his own decisions, and it makes him feel a little part of things. And the hair thing maybe is a little tricky. It's a whole thing. Anyway, so we're making kind of a deal that we'll make a video of him getting his hair cut, and he can even, like, we're gonna make a fake wig for Thomas. Hold on a minute. Yes, for Thomas. Yeah. Anyway, so then he can cut Thomas's hair, and he can show other kids, this is what it's like, and it's not scary, and just another helpful video maybe in the world for kids to not be so scared of something. So, but because you're in a tissue box, I need to mention this. There might be interruptions. There's nothing I can do about it. Usually I can just real quick pause it if someone walks in, and or if the cat, one cat, Toby, is in here right now, and he eats his food in here with me, and the kittens have their food downstairs, but they've learned how to scratch at the door too. Yeah. I'm glad that the little miss has learned how to use the litter box properly, meaning she buries her treasure. She wasn't at first, because where she came from, there was just a lot of them, and they just kind of piled on top of each other, and I don't think they really learned to bury. And luckily, she's learning to do that. I'm so proud of her. I tell her every time. So, so she's that's one thing that she's learned. It's wonderful. I'm glad. Anyway, we're 5 minutes in, and I still haven't even started painting. So one thing I'm gonna do is try and make a video where I talk about something that's a little more focused, which is the theory, and about focus. Go figure, right? And then the other video is going to be a little bit more emotional for me, because it's going to be about like one or two of my dreams. So we'll see how the ability to switch back and forth is going to help. And so back to what I was saying about that. You know, so there's just the right mix when it comes to me folding laundry or doing dishes, that there's that much focus and that much you know, what if wandering that's going on, that allows me to correctly do something all while still doing something else, thinking about something else. A lot of times it helps when I sing, but I'm not going to sing on the video, then that would kind of defeat the purpose of trying to talk, unless I sang. I watched a Judge Judy yesterday, and she asked the one defendant, she said, "Can you speak without singing?" And I thought, well, I guess I can kind of hear what she's talking about, because her voice kind of like went from one word to the next. There was no stop between words. So I guess I can kind of see how she, you know, that flow made her think of it as singing. Anyway, but I'm not going to do that. At least not at this point. You might hear me at some point if I'm talking to the cats or something. So, but the difficulty here, and the reason I'm doing this one first, is because so this one requires more focus than the folding of clothes. The folding of clothes, like I said, I've already got the two patterns set up in my mind. I've been doing it this way for years. Plus, it's very undoable too. Painting, it's almost, you know, once it's done, it's done. It's all or nothing kind of thinking, right? That lady I was saying, she'd say, no, that's not good thinking. Anyway, we're not going to go into that. I had my appointment yesterday, and that was another fun time. Anyway, so yes, so that's why sometimes people have some difficulty doing certain things, because it's stuck that way forever. There's no going back. Well, it's a pumpkin. It's not that big a deal, right? Sometimes in the brain it is. Sometimes it becomes such a focus. This is going to be my masterpiece. Yes, it is a pumpkin. Among all the bazillion pumpkins of the world, of yesterday and still of the ones to come. But yet this is my masterpiece. This will be my moment. So then the brain gets over focused, and then everything has to be perfect. Anyway, so the thing about, like I said, with the folding clothes, there's the pattern. And so then the ability to not be over focused on how to do something, on what I'm doing, then creates just the right amount of focus for being able to remember my topics and keep with it, and just the right amount of emotional what if, going back and forth between what if it's this pattern, what if it's that pattern, you know, that I follow for the folding. So then the mind has something to what if focus on, or sorry, this doesn't sound good. Has the what I need to focus on, the correct mixture there, as well as the emotional correct mixture, because my mind is doing the questioning, the what if I do this pattern, what if I do that pattern. And so then the what if, the emotional part of the brain isn't able to wander as much into other thoughts, into other things, you know. It still does. It will still do it. And you can still, if you really focus, you can actually still feel that in the back of your head. Not everybody. Again, this applies to some people, not to everybody. You can feel that, the wandering going in your head, and the different thoughts coming. But the difference is, the different thoughts come to the door, but they don't actually come in. As opposed to like some of my other videos where there is too much the focus, so that messes up the emotional, right? And then I'm sitting there going, oh, and talk about this and that. switch to another topic because the wandering is actually coming in through the door. See, the focus or the functional side keeps the emotional side in check. That's functional side has the reality check, and it keeps the emotional side in check. Think of it almost like a cloud, the emotional side, like a cloud just floating freely anywhere. And the functional creates walls that stops that cloud from just floating freely everywhere. It's not that it can't float, it's not that it can't be free, but we have limitations. Like when children test you and figure out their limitations. Oh my goodness. No idea how much I marvel at how children are actually a really great example of like the functional and the emotional. I may have said this before, I'm not sure. But the whole mine, the very selfish, this, until they learn and it now makes sense to them, learn to share. Not just learning to share, but if I share my toy with the other child will then share their toy. So me sharing my toy with them doesn't make sense. Them sharing their toy with me makes sense. But the only way they'll share their toy with me is if I share my toy. So now that completely makes sense. And you can see the emotional going on because it's the sharing, right? And that will give a feeling of, a feeling good, because then the other child will look at the other one and say, and smile, oh, your toy. So there'll be that, see how there's that perfect mixture of the two of them? And then, of course, the emotional side in children, the very loving, affectionate that they can be, or the very questioning, why, right? Of course, the crying, getting, emotional that way. The imagination, it's another one. So, there's a really, you look at kids and you just like see it right there. Anyway, I can see more of my face than I wanted to. Maybe I should cover it more. Anyway, keep worrying about what my hair's doing or what lighting is happening in the picture. I wish I could. Part of me is glad I can see myself, but part of me really wishes I couldn't see myself, because then there would be no distraction. Then it would just be la la la, paint, paint, paint. I don't even know what you're seeing because I'm not seeing it, so it doesn't matter anymore. And that would really help. Boy, that's going to be a fun experiment. Oh, gosh. Anyway, so it would be really nice, really, really nice, is if I could forget that the camera's on, or accept it. Now, that's the way it works. When we get in the spotlight, we either accept the spotlight or we forget it's there. One way or another, we have to make sense of it. That spotlight being on us, like that. Now, sometimes it just comes natural to some people. The spotlight is just a natural thing. Sometimes people have to work at it by either finding a way to accept it or make sense of it in some way. It's annoying, but it's there. It's like those commercials. What was that one commercial? It's for a Medicare, and she says, Medicare, check your zip. It drives me crazy. So I try to accept it by singing along with it. It still doesn't completely work. It just drives me crazy. I hear that commercial and I'm like, oh gosh, shut up, lady. Because I keep thinking she's telling me to check my zipper. Hey, your thing is not, Anyway. It's just annoying. So when you find something is annoying, if you can find a way to either accept it or forget it, it's helpful. You can make sense of it in some way. Which is weird, because actually by nature, what I would really be is a spotlight person. I think I've mentioned that before. So, but because the imbalance, it causes, I still don't have facts to support that these videos are going to mean something. That people aren't looking at these videos going, oh, you're stupid. Oh, you're dumb. You just click the swipe, go away. Am I wasting my time? Am I wasting my efforts? I could be sitting here getting this pumpkin done. I could be, well, currently I'm in the middle of a book, writing a book, typing. Actually, I'm past the writing part. I'm done with writing. Yay! I'm now typing and editing. Not the greatest at functional books, fact books. It's not a fact yet, but we're going to look at it as one. And my mind wants to play and wander. I'm more of a fiction person. But even then, I'm not, as you can tell if you listen to the other video, I sometimes go too far. The cloud, it just keeps spreading. There's no walls or fences to corral it. So anyway, I haven't even started painting. Oh, my light. I'm trying to have some distractions. I have a fan on, I have lights on, I still have the TV on, and Perry Mason is, in the background, which I don't have the sound on because of the video. But normally, if I was sitting here by myself painting this thing, probably I would end up talking to myself and very clearly talking about the theory, very clear conciseness there, because there's nobody focused on me. It doesn't matter. It's not important now. Now I can do something important because it's not important. I feel like I'm running my head into a wall over and over again. I see this. I see this in people. I hear it in people. The doctor yesterday, oh my goodness. Every time I said something, well, that's great. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that every time I said something. Really, I don't feel appreciated. If she ever sees this video, I don't want you to take offense at it. It's okay. That's who you are. Naturally, that's just what you are, who you are. And that's good, because that works great for some people. Unbelievably great for some people. Other people, not so much. It's like looking through, not to make it sound this in a negative way, but hey, she'll probably never see this video. No one will probably ever see this video. But it's like looking through someone's lies. It's like you don't appreciate it. It's what I call a functional response. Like when somebody says please, or if somebody says hello, and then the automatic response is to say hello back, right? So that's what it is. It's just a trained thing. It's a space filler actually, and it's a way of creating a closure in that space, that empty space. So I'm reading something completely different into what her words really mean than what I think she realizes. And she had a student with her yesterday too. And it's funny because, again, if she ever saw this video, please forgive me. I think I probably would have had a better conversation with her student than with her. Just because. Anyway, it's tough. It's really tough to talk to people when they have what I call the textbook filter. You went to school for this many years. You studied these textbooks. This is what you have learned that because of those textbooks. So when you listen to these people, you are listening through a textbook filter. You're like a detective. You're searching for the clues to the mental health issue. So of course you're not going to be open in another way to listening, which, by the way, I think I actually cover this in the book with the listening versus hearing thing, and how listening is functional and hearing is emotional. And the reason why is because, remember, I say functional is the focus side. You focus, like when you're sitting there talking to someone, and then all of a sudden you hear a noise. Just out of all the noises that are going on, you hear noise. And then the functional kicks in for whatever reason, because it's intrigued by that noise, interested in some way. So then you say, oh, shh, hold on. Well, first, actually, the first thing you do, did you hear that? Oh, shh, hold on, I'm listening. Right, see, you go to a focus instead. So focus is in on one thing at a time, whereas the emotional side is various options all the time, change, all that, all that la la la. It can listen to all the different things. The same as when you're looking at the world. Even though you are seeing gazillion things at once, your brain is actually only, it's only seeing, it's taking in the big picture, and seeing it as one picture, but the brain is also only focusing in on one thing, which is why you'll see some people actually can walk in, look at a picture one time, look away and say, these are the 20 objects that were in there, and they can tell you the color, and they can tell you the size of the object, whereas other people are like, well, I think there was a ball. Yeah, and I think it was pink. No, red. No, maybe it was blue. The difference is the brain being able to focus in on one thing at a time. It's like for some people it sees that one thing at a time, but it takes note of that one thing. Whereas the emotional sees it and it just kind of washes over it, which is what allows us to be able to see whole scenes and to see them, to feel them, to all of it, and to have a general idea of what we're looking at, to keep that general focus, because there's things that are definitely important in for focus, without actually always being able to do the total recall of everything that we've seen, whereas some people can. And go figure, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times those people are the more functional thinking people. Sometimes it's the emotional thinking people, though. It all depends. It depends, and this is something I'm going to have to find a way to explain. Because I've already, like I said, I've already done the writing part, but just because it makes sense to me doesn't mean it's going to make sense to you. It's kind of important. But I have to find a way to explain to people. And I did have examples, but they're lost somewhere in my notes in my phone. And that is that, as you know, sometimes the brain does what it thinks it should do or think or whatever, kind of like the subconscious thinking. You may feel one way, but your subconscious feels another way. So you might do something subconsciously, meaning you're not consciously aware of doing it or why you're doing it, and it's your subconscious doing it. Well, yeah, I really believe in that one, because I believe that the functional it's our quieter side. It speaks when it needs to. And I believe that, I don't think I'm going to be putting this video up on YouTube. It's 20 minutes long and I've done nothing but jibber jabber. I forgot what I was talking about. I hear Perry Mason finishing up, which reminds me what time it is. That's why I thought about the time that I'm got on the phone here. And I still haven't started reading. My. Okay. I'm trying to think. I'm debating if I should pause this or do a reset, get the paint stuff actually out so I can actually start, or watch Matlock. Sometimes it's an interesting one. Hey, sometimes we watch the old shows because it was a simpler time, and when the brain is trying to simplify. Diary of a Perfect Murder. That sounds like a Columbo episode. No, I would watch Columbo for sure, even if it's an episode I've seen 20,000 times, which I probably have. Actually, the other day, it was so funny. There was an episode of Columbo I had never seen before. I think, I shouldn't say I'd never seen it before. There were parts of it that looked a little familiar, but I did not remember the story at all. Still haven't completely seen it because somebody short and little was needing attention here and there, so I didn't quite catch everything. But it was so cool because I always think to myself, boy, I wish I could just see a brand new episode of Columbo, just cause. Which is a good sign, actually, that I'm ready to move on from Columbo. Yeah. It's when you're over the whole familiar thing. You're starting to become adventurous again. You're starting to say, what if? That's one of the reasons, the opposite is one of the reasons we get stuck on those kind of shows and books and movies and everything, because it's the brain searching for answers in a time where it's confused or something, of course. movies, TV shows, especially from our childhood, of a simpler time, which made sense, right? Or when things made sense and then stopped making sense, too. That's a big one. Because if something happens during your childhood, which not to, go all doctor on people and everything, but that's where things happen. That's, you're most vulnerable. Not to mention, that's where you started out first. Now, if you were born as an adult, then the doctors would be looking at you and say, okay, well, tell me about your adulthood. Yeah. But we weren't born as adults. We're born and then, become kids. So that's why it's always there. It's the first one. Anyway, if something happened during the childhood, it's very possible that people watch TV shows and read old books to go back to that time in their mind to find those answers of what happened. So if you're ever, that's actually a good one. If you're ever trying to figure out what happened to you during your childhood that bothers you, maybe you're one of those people who watches the old movies, reads the old book, whatever, things fun, anything from the past, anything that's nostalgic. Look specifically at what you are nostalgic about. And see if you can try and figure out, for example, the old Batman show. When did you start watching the old Batman show? Because most likely it's around that time that whatever happened that's stuck in the back of your brain bugging you, causing you anxiety, depression, whatever else, that might very well be when that happened. So then you can figure out what it is and work through it and ta-da. Which is a real bummer that it's 26 minutes in, because that's actually a good point. I never thought about putting it that way. I always word it in other ways. It's helpful when I just come up with something off the top of the head, which is something I'll go ahead and share, even though it's in the book. You ever wonder how it is that you'll be sitting there and all of a sudden you'll have this thought in your head, and it'll be like clear and concise. It's a matter of a few words or just a couple of sentences, but it gets exactly like how you've got to have a conversation with someone, and it's tricky, because you're like, how do I explain this to this person? I just don't know. And then you give up and you walk away from the situation, right? So then your brain is able to do things correctly because now you're not over focused on that situation. But then later on, all of a sudden it comes to you exactly what to say, and it's clear, it's simple, it's perfect. You're like, oh gosh, if I could just bottle this, if I could just take a snapshot. Because, and I say that because if you don't write it down, write it down right then and there, or say it right then and there, and even if you do, when you try to repeat it later, it's just not the same. It's the meaning, there's more words, there's a lot more words actually, oftentimes. It's just not the same. Okay. That is because the functional speaks, and it speaks once. It speaks when it needs to. And most of the time that's just once. And when it does speak, it's pretty clear. It's not a la 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 talk it outside. It's a this is yes or this is no. This is what needs to be addressed. This is what I will say. Done. That's your functional side talking whenever those moments happen. But it only speaks once. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't recall the information somewhat later. It doesn't mean that you might not even be able to recall it kind of like you had earlier. It all depends. It all depends upon what makes sense and what the functional side needs. Not you, but what the functional side needs. That's a really tricky one because that's, like I said, that's the one I'm having difficulty with trying to figure out how to explain to people. That it's almost like, how sometimes people are like, I feel like I'm more than one person. Like the borderline identity crisis. They used to call it multiple personalities kind of idea. And some people, even though they don't have necessarily multiple personalities, they feel like they do. This is why, by the way. because you have an emotional side and you have a functional side. And if for whatever reason, maybe it's an imbalance, maybe it's not. I don't know. Who knows for sure? I can't speak to individual situations without actually seeing something. But do you see how you can have two different opinions, two different ideas, two different feelings, two different ways of looking at things? Not to mention, so with the functional side, it's about need or not need, or don't need, excuse me. And the emotional side, it's about want or not want, which means you can go forward in your brain or you can go reverse in your brain. And both operations are on both sides are correct, except it's a time and a place. There are moments in our life where we have to use our brain forward and sometimes where we have to use it reversed. As long as it goes back to the regular balance, that's a good thing. So it can be imbalanced, right? We've talked about this. But as long as it goes back to its actual balance, it's good. Yeah, it's a tough one. Even though I've covered a couple important things, I'm going to have to try this experiment again because I can still see my face, I think, too much. Not as much, but I can still see it too much. And it's distracting. And I haven't even started painting. Oh well. I guess I'll try again.